Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scott McTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
But I think as I was preparing for it, I never really get nervous about it because I'm just telling the truth. I'm telling the truth. So either you're going to help us solve it or you're not.
Hey, everybody. It's Scott. It's Wednesday, and it's the Pitchwerks podcast. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. Kelauni Cook, Black Tech Nation, has come into the Pitchwerks podcast studios, and I want to talk to her about the sacrifices that I watched her put in to this organization. I know it's true. I saw it. And that's what I want to talk about this week, because I think a lot of us talk a pretty good game about what we gave up and how we got here. But I know the late nights. I saw them. I know the times when she decided that, she was going to give up on one thing so that she could have another. And those are hard decisions, and I want to get into that decision-making process. I'd also like to know a little bit more about just sort of what were her initial expectations and what did she learn along the way. So we're going to find out about Black Tech Nation and Kelauni and just the trajectory that she's on. Before we jump into the interview, I'm going to ask you to rate and review this fine program on iTunes. I do that because it's how other people find the show, and it is literally the only thing I get out of this deal, so I don't think I'm out of line in asking. Give us a star rating. Tell us why you gave us that rating, and we'll use that as input when we continue to make more of these. It really is important. I'd appreciate it. Let's talk to Kelauni. Let's find out what's going on at Black Tech Nation. I'll tell you this. She got funded, and she's doing a pretty good job, so I want to find out what goes into that. All right, I'm not 100% sure this is real life because Kelauni Cook has finally made her way here into the Pitchwerks podcast. I've dropped little breadcrumbs and shout-outs for you on this show. It's got to be 2 years now. A year, that's a lie. It's a year. Let's say a year I've actually gone to the desperate, I'm going to say her name on the show so that she knows that we're going to get her in here. How are you?
I'm well.
I'm messing with you. But,
I know.
But you earned it.
I know. It's been a long time coming.
I will say this. When I extended that offer to you, you said, look, when I talk about something, I want it to be a little bit more complete. Mm-hmm. And all respect to you for that. Actually, It's what I want to spend a lot of time talking about today. Mm-hmm. For the people that don't know you, right, I would like for you to introduce yourself, however it is that you prefer to do that. I think a lot of us know you as Kelauni from Black Tech Nation, but I don't know if that's necessarily the way you would introduce yourself.
Well, yeah, honestly, because that is such a huge part of my life at this point. Yeah. It probably is how I
put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, it is so much of who I am at this point. So I guess I'm Kelauni Cook. I am a software developer. I am a very ambitious Black woman. I am the founder of an organization called Black Tech Nation. I'm a native Chicagoan, Maywoodian, right outside of Chicago, but grew up in Chicago.
As far as I'm concerned,
yeah,
it counts, right? But yes. I'm not much of a referee, so take it with a grain of salt.
And I'm a Howard alum, Howard University.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, so those are all the things I think that make me right now.
Well, I'm going to make you uncomfortable. How's that feel?
That is
par for the course.
Right.
I know. I knew what the answer was going to be as soon as I said the thing. I have this uncanny ability to make you uncomfortable, and pardon me if I enjoy it a little bit. It's what I'm good at, I want you to take I want you to take a compliment, and I want you not to beg off it, okay? And it's this. I have, from a distance granted, been able to watch you build Black Tech Nation from when I think pretty much literally you didn't have two nickels to rub together, and you didn't back off it when you had what I would count as a completely legitimate reason to sort of throw in the towel. Because, let's face it, this is not a for-profit thing. This is not a giant, this is not a $1 billion empire. You did it because you felt it and you never gave up on what you thought was something that needed to exist. And I see a lot of people pose as being the person that I know you to be.
Thank you.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
That was pretty great. Thank you. That's a huge compliment. Wow, what do I say to that? Basically,
How about thank you?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just messing with you.
No, thank you. That is a great compliment. I think it's so funny when people compliment me on building this thing out, compliment me on coming to Pittsburgh with knowing not one person because
That's a
I saw an
tough thing.
opportunity.
This town's tough that way.
People compliment me for things that I just feel like are normal to me. So I think, like you said, just take the compliment. I mean, we know each other pretty well at this point.
I think, but also though, I know that there's a part of you that maybe I don't know, which is that you didn't get here by taking compliments and then like, I don't know, like patting yourself on the back, like just like giving the warm, fuzzy feeling the run of the place, right? You're like, no, that compliment's not real and I need to keep pushing. We've never talked about this, but you give off that vibe.
I've never been one. There's this book called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
Okay.
It's a spiritual kind of book.
Yeah. I've heard of it, only just because of the author's level of fame.
Yeah.
Like I haven't read it. Yeah.
Oprah famous in the spiritual world, I guess you could say. And he said something that really resonated with me back when I was in my early 20s trying to figure out life and who I was and what I believed in and didn't. And he said, whether people say good things to you or bad things to you, you should always feel indifferent. And that's not to say that you don't appreciate them. Right. But what people do and say to you should not affect at all what is in your heart and who you are as a person. And so I've never been driven by people's words necessarily.
Right. That's not the payoff.
It's not the payoff for me. I don't think it ever has been the payoff.
My dad used to say, you can't eat attaboys, right? Like,
yes.
Like everybody has an attaboy for you, probably doesn't have a check.
Right, exactly. Right. That's what motivates me. No, I'm kidding.
Well, you got to eat. That's real.
Yeah, so I've been lucky in that I've excelled at a lot of things in my life, and I've had a great support system, and I've always gotten great compliments, and that's great. Like, thanks. But I think that's why I don't absorb them as like they make me who I am.
I 100% understand where you're coming from, but the compliment's necessary because, again, how many people wear the robes of sacrifice, right? I can't tell the veracity of that claim with a lot of people. So you and I have been hanging around in some of the same places for a couple of years now. And again, at the risk of embarrassing you, right? Like the first time I ever met you was when you were catching a nap in the middle of one of these long grinds. Like you were in co-working grind mode where you were writing some code, or I think you were learning something new at this point. And you kind of just like took over the sofa, fell asleep, and I had to be in the same general place. But that was my first exposure. I'm like, who is this person who's crashing asleep at the co-work, right? Like that's weird to me because nobody else does it, right? So then you start asking yourself, not because it's important like for the trajectory of my day, but it's just like, why is that happening, right? Like, is this person like working 3 jobs? Is this person just like trying to get out of paying rent somewhere? And then, some mutual friends of ours said, oh, no, that's Kelauni, and she's all in. She's grinding, and it's real. And you and I started to talk, and you started telling me what you had in mind for
lots of things.
Well, I don't know if it even had a name yet. I don't know if Black Tech Nation had a name yet. If it did, I don't know if it came up in conversation. But the sacrifice was there, and that's where I kind of wanted to start off. I think there is an easy temptation for a lot of people with a subject like Black Tech Nation to say like, tell me what it is. Tell me, and let's get like really immersed in what it is and why is it that and whatever. And honestly, I think you should probably just tell people now what it is, but I want to go back to the what did it take to get where you're at, because you just recently got some funding. Yeah. And that's the bit I really want to end the story with, so I don't want to get sidetracked.
Okay. Black Tech Nation is an answer to a problem. I would put a period right there. It's an answer to what
like
so
any
many
good startup product, right?
I mean, yeah, but like this is a little different to me than a startup. While I respect startups, I respect the tech industry. I'm in the tech industry. I think I have a whole new respect for people who run companies.
Yeah.
A whole new respect.
Yeah, you and I've had a couple conversations where all of a sudden you realize like how many time sucks are out there waiting to get you. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like, talk about just getting to know who you are at every level that you don't want to get to know yourself. It's amazing what people are out here accomplishing.
I will say this to the audience.
Yeah.
Self-awareness is one of the most useful tools there is.
Oh my gosh. I'm saying that to say I had nothing against people who start tech companies and entrepreneurs, but Black Tech Nation is deeper than that to me. It has a purpose that it goes far beyond just like the name of it, like Black Techies, like a gathering of Black Techies. It's so much more than that. It's like it's a place, it's a space for people who really feel like they don't have a voice or a space in the city. And this is a national issue. And so for me, it's a little deeper than just it's a problem, like solving a problem like every company. It's really is affecting lives in like a much deeper way than creating something that you could play with on your phone.
So let's jump ahead to the end, right? So you did, in fact, get a nice bit of funding, right? Tell me how that unfolded for you. Like, tell me how that finally broke.
Someone told me yesterday that so everyone has like a gift or something that they're really great at.
Yeah.
And they told me that what they see is that I'm good at telling a story that is typically uncomfortable, that still makes people feel comfortable.
Okay.
Specifically those that write checks. And
wow, wait, there's a lot to unpack there. Hang on a second. So in other words, you're advising them of something that is difficult without making them so uncomfortable as to feel as though
attacked
maybe, right? But also like it's an unsolvable problem, and so therefore don't try, right? There's a lot of things. Unpacking that, you could probably spend an entire show. That sentence right there.
But also, I think my passion just kind of like, it explains itself. So when I go into these big meetings, I have a huge meeting tomorrow with probably one of the biggest foundations in the city. Nice. And I'm just,
let's hope they do the right thing.
Right.
Nice foundation you got there. Be a shame if something were to happen to it.
Nothing's gonna happen to this foundation. Trust me. No, they'll be fine. But I think as I was preparing for it, like I never really get nervous about it because I'm just telling the truth. Like I'm telling the truth. So either you're going to help us solve it or you're not.
How many pitches have you given on this subject?
On Black Tech Nation?
Yes.
For Black Tech Nation?
Yes. And specifically for funding?
For funding?
Right.
Oh, probably around 6 to 8.
Okay.
Where I'm in a meeting with execs and...
So you got a hell of a batting average. If you did 6 to 8
yeah.
pitches for money and you actually
Gotten
received funding from...
two big ones.
Don't rub it in, all right? Nobody likes... What are you, 30? Nobody likes a 30-year-old show-off, all right? No, that's impressive. As you look back, in the beginning, did you fully appreciate the task or did you have a pretty good project plan?
I think because this was something that was solving a problem that people saw. Yeah. That I had to allow it to kind of be its own thing before I tried to tackle it down and make it into something super structured. Okay. So that's why at first I let the community, not just the Black community, but also the tech community, I wanted to know I let everyone kind of tell me what they felt was needed. Okay. And I listened. I did a lot of listening, a lot of writing, a lot of planning, and not even planning, but just a lot of taking in and using my experience as a Black woman in tech, using the experience of my peers as young Black people in tech, and then also taking other perspectives from other people and just making it into almost a soup. Yeah. And then once the soup kind of revealed its flavor, I then created a dish out of it. And I did that through, it's kind of like you let it just do its thing and then you reel it all in once you understand the different parts that it could be. Okay. Or the different parts that are needed. But it was not easy. it was a lot of days of making sure that I stayed true to the mission, which was to create a space for Black techies without getting sidetracked by what the industry, I don't want to say selfishly, but selfishly wanted. And let me explain that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times the people that were reaching out, I think they had good intentions, but I think some of the times it was selfish intentions where it wasn't necessarily about what the actual issue was when it came to inclusion. It was like, give us your Black techies because we're looking for them now.
Oh, it was a recruiting thing.
Well,
okay.
Recruiting or like, not even, recruiting, but just like the whole image of it. Like I had a lot of organizations and people saying, invite your whole network to come to our event now.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I get that we're trying to be inclusive now, but do you understand the underlying issue and do you appreciate what it is that we're trying to create? And would you want to come into our space instead of us always going to yours?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I mean that physically and philosophically too. It can't always be, oh, well now, like, look what we're doing for you now. And that's what I found a lot of, and I still find a lot of, is like doing us a favor. And it's a lot of it too is like, how do I build this thing where I stay true to the Black techies? I make sure that we're bridging gaps, but then also that our value is apparent.
Okay.
And that's the part that took some time, and just trying to figure out how to do that. And building a community is not easy. Like,
it's complex.
It's very complex.
There's a lot of texture and nuance to everything you just said, right? The last point that you were making about, like, you know, the value, right? Like, you know, it would be easy to want to give a drive-by solution, right? Because we like our shows to be like 30 or 60 minutes, and like the bad guy shows up at the beginning and he's in jail at the end, and then it's like, wow, and there was commercials too, right? Like, you know, we like a tidy bow on top. And if you were building a new software application for banks to, you know, better find cyber fraud or whatever, right? You could build a project plan, and you could say, here's the project plan that I think, and then execute on that. What's interesting is I find you describe a process very similar to what startups actually do, which is you try something and then you iterate, right? Like, okay, do it and then improve it and then do it and then improve it and then do it. So that was your listening. That was your like checking to see whether or not you're adhering to priorities. I'm a huge fan of that. You have to know, like, what's the most important thing on my list, and move it physically, like actually rewrite the list so that the top priority is on top. And I am always curious about, like, when people start, did they even know what the top priority was? Like, we all think we do. And the answer is always yes. Do you know what the top priority is? You'd have to be an idiot to say no, right? But when you started, you had one view. And then as you progressed through it and you're listening, right? It changed, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Did it change radically? You kind of said it like it might have.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It changed well, again, it was kind of a beautiful accident. I didn't expect this to be anything. I just thought it was going to be like us having a conversation.
Yeah.
But it turned into a whole thing. But I guess my very first idea of this was just like a book club where, like, you know, you get together around something you have in common, a book, and you talk about it.
Right.
So it's like, oh, well, I'll just find other Black techies who care about tech, and we'll just get together sometimes and talk about it.
Right.
But it ended up being way more than that.
Did it get more complex out of, like, you wanted to add features to it, or out of necessity?
Out of necessity. I think there were just so many parts. Hearing the name Black Tech Nation, you can put anything to that. Like, there's so many things that could mean and be.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. It was like, this sounds big. It sounds like you guys do a lot of great things that will really help us be more inclusive, or for the Black people. This sounds like a really big thing that will make sure my kid excels in tech. or this sounds like a really big thing where I can find some VC money for my new tech idea and I can find like people to help me for free. Like it's like everyone kind of came at it like, whoa. And that's how I knew like this is something that people are really like starving for.
Yeah, I think people write their own, like they read the headline, they don't read the article.
Exactly.
Is that a fair
That is very
analogy,
true.
right?
Yeah, for sure. So everything started April 2017 when I had an event called Where is Black Tech in Pittsburgh, because I realized that I was always the only Black person, especially Black woman, in these tech spaces and events and around all these VC people and investors. And so I'm just like, is this like a Pittsburgh thing, or like, where are the Black people? And so I just was curious, and I asked the question and had a huge turnout for an event. No one even knew me. I had just moved here.
Right.
So I just grabbed a couple people that I knew, asked them to reach out to their networks. They did, and we had a really great discussion.
Did you end up with an answer to that question? Was it a Pittsburgh thing? Was it a something else?
So about 80 people showed up, put them in groups of 10 to have just like conversations around very difficult questions. I can't remember specifically all of them, but one was, is Pittsburgh racist? I remember that was one of the questions. And so people got to really talk about it and write their answers down. And what we came up with was that this is something, obviously, that's not just a Pittsburgh problem. This is an American problem. This is a global problem, obviously.
I get the newspaper. I've heard some things.
Yeah. However, there is a very interesting, and I think people from Pittsburgh know this, an interesting environment here. One like I've never seen before, especially when it comes to communities of color and race and division and siloedness, if that's a word.
Yeah, if I'm right. Average white income is $57,000. Average Black income is $26,000.
I think it's worse than that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting here. So anyway, everyone knows that, and one thing I can say is no one's denying it.
Well, they're honest about. I mean, I haven't met anybody who denies the reality.
Yeah, but other cities I've lived in is just kind of like, it's kind of fluffed. Here, it's like, there's a problem. Like, this is a problem. What are we about to do to fix it? The problem is, I feel like there's so many cooks in the kitchen trying to fix it that everyone's kind of like competing in their own little silos again. And so then it just kind of becomes this weird mishmash of trying to solve something that really needs a lot more focus.
Well, if there's one thing I've noticed that we do have a lot of here, it's nonprofits and foundations.
3,500 more than any city in America.
I thought so. It feels like it. It feels like you can't throw a rock in any direction.
3,500 nonprofits.
That is a
more
lot.
than per capita of New York City. It's not that I see them creating their own things outside of what's already happening. I just see a lot of people creating the same things.
Yeah.
To
redundant.
fix the same. Yeah, it's very redundant.
Yeah.
And I think that hinders a lot of progress sometimes. And then you just get the same people like in the room kind of just mulling over the same issues. And it's like, okay, how is this now going to work? What's the steps to actually make it work? And so that's where I am with Black Tech Nation. Like, I'm done doing the community talks and the like, oh, well, what's the problem? Well, how did we get here? We're done with that.
You're done with the analysis piece.
We're done with the analysis. Like, that was 2018. I sat on all the panels, went to all the round tables. I even held focus groups, even among my own constituency, had Black techies talk about what they felt the state of Black tech was here and in America in general. And we've talked and we've gathered data. Now we're done talking. So 2019 is all about execution. Okay, let's take these ideas and actually put stuff to work.
Now, let me tell you something right now, okay? This vibe you're throwing off right now, I love. I know that that's not necessarily how everyone feels about it, but I personally love it, right? Because what you're doing is you're saying, like, look, I have to cut ties with some things, right? And that means sometimes that people get their feelings hurt, their feathers ruffled. I was counting on having you at my event. I was counting on your star power to bring people to my thing, right? That becomes a part of it, back to incentives, right? And that brings us back to the unapologetic in my mission. Right, I do think this is something that distinguishes you from other people, right? And people are going to feel a little bruised sometimes when you have to draw a line in the sand about your time. When you say, like, no, you don't understand, I don't get an infinite supply of time.
I'm learning this right now. It's
difficult.
A tough thing. It's tough. It is tough.
And you're still, again, like, I know that 30 is like a shock to your system, but you're still super young, right? No, but people aren't used to a 30-year-old giving them that. Like they're supposed to tell you that, right?
Yeah.
They're not supposed to have you say, look, time is the most valuable resource I have, and I can't write you a blank check for it.
I think I've been lucky in a sense here.
Yeah.
Because of the amount of attention that we received.
Oh, you did.
So quickly.
Yeah.
That I think people automatically assume that I'm busy, which I am all the time.
You are.
So that kind of worked in my favor. I never felt the sense that people were upset with me when I said no or like didn't. I never felt that.
I'm just saying that in general,
But
when you tell people that time is limited, they have a tendency to wonder if it's a personal question. Like, are you just lying to me because you don't like being here? Or you?
I think even more than that is like, wow, I'm not important enough. Like, I get that your time
that's
is
another
limited.
thing, yeah.
Is like, but I'm not important enough.
I thought I rose.
I
to
thought
the
I
level.
was like, at the level where you would. And it's interesting to like be in a position. I mean, I moved here 3 years ago. I didn't know anyone. Like, I did not expect all of this to happen. And so now being in this position,
and now knowing
I'm
Kelauni is kind of a thing. Like now knowing Kelauni is kind of like a thing.
It's crazy.
I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, but it is kind of a thing.
People tell me this like all the time, and it's I laugh.
Yeah, people.
It's like,
okay, so here's something even weirder. People brag to me about knowing you.
Yeah, it's funny.
Assuming I don't know you.
Yeah,
and they're like, well, I could probably get Kelauni Cook here if I needed to.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, isn't it?
It's definitely weird, especially when all I'm doing is just. I shouldn't say all and I shouldn't say just because it is a lot of work and I do realize the impact that it's having. However, it's
not as mystical to you.
Yeah, it's just,
All right. What is next? You've gotten to a point now where you're funded. You've got a pretty good, you've got a plan. You've got a cosign from foundations that say that this is they want you to do the things you said you're going to do, right? How long does that take? Where do you go from here? Yeah.
It's so funny. It's so different running something when you have money now. It's actually more pressure. I've never dealt with this amount of money in my life. But the great thing about it is that I know it's all going to help my community and help people be exposed to something that might actually change their lives. So that's what makes it easy.
Yeah.
So what's next is, I call 2018 the year of struggle, the year of figuring it all out, the year of strategy, the year of raising money, the year of networking.
This year's got a long name, I got to tell you.
Yeah, 2018 was something else. It was the building year.
Yeah.
And I think people don't understand, and that was another thing with Pittsburgh, I guess, because everyone was so excited about this, and I'm very appreciative of it. Even like Black people were excited, white people were excited, tech industry was excited, everyone, institutions, companies, and I got bombarded, which is not a bad problem.
No, some people wait in line for years.
Wait in line, and I get that. Like, I know I've been extremely fortunate in building this thing out. However, for the majority of the time, it was me and two guys that would help out every now and then. Shout out to Ben and Menelik, who would help out every now and then. But it was me every day with no money and no food figuring this thing out when I had never run a company or an organization before. And these things take time. But I had people emailing me like, so when can we start recruiting your people? And it's just like, I don't even have everything together. Like, what is happening right now? So I stayed, it was stressing me out before.
Yeah.
But around the summer last year, I was like, I am doing this for how I need to do it. I'm cutting out the noise. If I can't meet with you, I can't meet. If I can't provide that service, I can't provide it. I'm focusing on building this community of Black tech unicorns. That's what my focus is. And
love the logo, by the way.
Thank you.
I forgot to tell you that. I got it immediately.
Yeah.
And I was like, unicorn.
Yeah.
Oh, but you're in Pittsburgh. Not everybody's going to get it because we don't necessarily always have the Silicon Valley.
Right. The lingo or whatever. Yeah. So that was 2018. I cut out all the noise and I strategized and I put together a 5-year plan, went out for money, very successful in all of that. And so now this year is about the execution.
Yeah.
And not the execution for the tech industry in general. the execution for building a culture
Okay.
and building a community for the Black techies. Because the main thing that we heard in our focus groups was, I don't really see myself staying here because there's nothing here for us. I don't feel included. I don't feel that this is a place where, even outside of tech, like I just don't feel like we have a space. It's a very interesting environment.
Okay.
So I'm trying to create an actual community and culture that works within the tech community that's already here, but kind of has its own flavor.
Yeah.
Because everyone needs that. And to be quite blunt, a lot of white people will never get that because everywhere you go, you see people that look like you.
Yeah.
Everything is built for you. Everything is catered to the way you do things, the way you eat, the way you walk, the way you do your culture is, the way you absorb things. Like everything is built for you.
Yeah.
So living in a space where that's not who you are, but you have to always consistently and constantly adapt to it. Put that on top of life.
Well, that's the tiring
like
piece.
it's so tiring.
Yeah.
It is extremely tiring, and sometimes you just want to relax.
Right.
And that is something it can be hard to explain to white people. So and when I say like I'm creating a space, like people are like, well, what does that mean, a space? And it's like
They're trying to figure out if you're buying,
right, like
buying
are you buying a building? Like what's a space?
I knew as soon as like, are we leasing? Like
Right.
I know a guy.
So how much
Like,
would that cost?
Right.
Like, no, that's not the space I'm talking about. And honestly, like I worried about explaining to foundations because foundations are about metrics, but there's no metrics to building a culture. There's no metrics to building a community. The only metrics you have to that is stories. And so I have to count on storytelling to get my funding because you can't quantify the value that someone gets from being able to leave work and then go be around people like them who are also in their industry, who come from their background and their culture.
Kelauni Cook, thanks for coming into the Pitchwerks
course.
podcast. It only took you a year and a half. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's the end of the ride. Thanks as always for tuning in. Thanks to Kelauni. Best of luck over there at Black Tech Nation. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe we can steer some people to join the nation from having heard this episode, which I'm very glad we finally got in the books. I got to remind you that if you're not subscribed, this would be the time to do it because then you'll get it automatically on Wednesday morning every time a new show comes out. Buzzy and I are going to get back in the lab. We're going to make another one of these. I hope you take care of yourself in the meantime.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and McTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, pitchwerks.